also running my own consulting company. But the presentation I'm going to be making today took place when I was manager of public consultation and government programs. So I would really like to sincerely thank TransLink for giving me this opportunity to present this to you all today. Okay, so this is always lots of fun when we now find out that it's not there we go. So bear with me on the technical stuff, and hopefully we'll keep rolling. So a little bit of an outline. I'm going to present a little bit on who TransLink is, the process, and then really how we did the case study. So we'll have an opportunity to go through all of these things over the next 30 to 40 minutes. So who is TransLink? TransLink is the Regional Transportation Authority for the Greater Vancouver area. It represents over 21 municipalities, and that's approximately 2.1 million people. TransLink's really a very innovative transportation authority. They represent all of the different transit modes, so you can see Handy Dart, Community Shuttle, you can see the trains, West Coast Express, you can see SkyTrain, but they're also, and C-Bus down at the bottom there, but they're also responsible for roads and bridges and biking and walking and goods movement. So they really are a completely integrated transportation authority, and really they touch the lives of everybody in the Greater Vancouver area. Now, one of the things, and I know you're going to have a polling question coming up in just a second, when I joined TransLink, I actually joined with a very interesting role. Public consultation is actually mandated. It's part of the legal obligation for TransLink. But it was really just acknowledged as a legal obligation. There was nothing that really padded it out much more to say, well, what does that mean and who does that involve and everything else. So I was very fortunate to be able to put in TransLink's principles, public consultation and public outreach. And these particular principles were designed by myself and our team, our public consultation team at TransLink, and then they were subsequently ratified by the board. So these principles are available to everyone internally so that they know what their roles and responsibilities as far as public consultation is concerned, but they're also available externally. So anyone can see these on our website, and so they have the ability, if they're saying, well, you know, I'm just attending a public consultation session, I just want to confirm what I can expect, well, this is what you can expect. So Anne, I know you've got the poll open at the moment. Did you want me to pause for a minute before I go to the next one?
Yeah, I think you have a follow-up question to this one as well, so we'll just wait for a few more folks to vote. We've got 40% of you counted in here. And Amelia, maybe you can talk a bit how your organization came up with these principles. Were they based on existing practices?
Actually, thank you very much. Nice segue, Anne. Well done. These actually come from the IAP2 core values. And for any of you that are looking for sort of a platform to start with, we went to the IAP2 core values. We really liked what they stood for, and so we asked permission from IAP2 to be able to basically use these but modify them to fit our own needs. So as you can see, we have modified the core values, but they're very much based on those specific values that IAP2, certainly IAP2 around the world actually espouses to. So that's where they came from. And so again, if you don't have principles, and I guess we're waiting to hear what the polling results are, but if you don't have principles, it just makes your life really easy. Because once they're there, once they've been established, once your board or your senior executive team have approved them, it then allows you to work very closely with your internal decision makers or planners or whoever it is that you're working with and saying, this is the fundamentals of what we do when we do public consultation, and then you can build from there.
Great. And I see we've just close the poll on where they're posted for those that do have them, and most have them posted externally, it looks like, but some just internally as well. And do you have anything to say about what might be the risks or consequences about only posting them internally, or why you'd want to post external?
I think, one of the things that we stand for is transparency and accountability. And when you have these posted externally, it just assists you. I mean, one of the reasons we do public consultation is to really, it gives us a social license to ultimately do what we need to do. So why not be open and above board and show people these are the principles that we work under. So, I mean, there's a risk because they now know what you're going to do, but there's also a significant opportunity because they can hold you accountable, but they also know that you're being transparent about your process.
Great.
Okay. So we're going to, one of the things that TransLink works towards, and probably I would expect most of you do too as well, is a consultation triad. We do a lot of government relations and stakeholder outreach, and we have many varieties of partners. In fact, at TransLink we have a stakeholder roundtable that we work with probably 3 or 4 times a year, and they really are the sounding board for TransLink, but they represent the environment, social groups, the government, business, transportation authorities, etc. Then we have a very engaged public, and these people will come out to our events, they'll participate online, they'll do all of those types of things, and we want to make sure that we're doing as much as possible to reach out to all of those different types of people. But like all of you, we also have a disengaged public. And a lot of the work that TransLink does is going to everybody, whether they're going to participate or not. And we reach out to our disengaged public through market research. And we find that that's perhaps the best way when we're trying to measure how we're moving forward. So just wanted to share that with you. And of course, as we do anything, we always look to Anne.
Yes.
There's somebody that's either walking around or doing a lot of movement. I'm hearing a lot of echoing. Ah, it's stopping.
Okay.
So somebody
Great.
heard me. Okay.
And sorry, I'll just make a note for folks that on your control panel on the left-hand sidebar there, you can click the green microphone to mute your screen. So if any of you want to do that, you can do that as well. Go ahead.
Thanks, Anne. Much appreciated. So again, one of the things that TransLink does when we start out any particular consultation project, we always take a little bit of time to sit down and figure out where we fit on the spectrum. I think that really just assists everyone in determining how you're going to create your strategy. Given that this particular exercise, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, is such an important one and that it was going to really impact how we moved forward, we actually made the decision to go collaborate. This is a really tough decision, and you really need to make sure that you have your internal buy-in. And in this case, we made sure that it was approved both by our senior executive team, but it was also approved by our board, so that they all agreed that they were prepared to take it out to the collaborate stage.
And Amelia, I've just put this poll up here, so I'll ask folks to let us know if they use the spectrum in their consultation projects. I'm wondering what kind of descriptors you use to let people know what the differences were between the different levels, and what kind of pushback you might have got from that.
Well, to be quite honest, we do very much speak to the to what's on the spectrum itself, and so one of the things that we have done, or that we had done internally, was we ensured that our planners and the other people that worked with us on a fairly continuous basis had copies of this. And I think, to be honest, one of the most exciting moments in my public consultation career was when we had one of the planners come up and say, you know, I think this particular one is probably at the involved stage. Going, woohoo!
That's great.
Party moment. It was all good. So, so I think it's really important to share this. It's a really easy document. It's up online on the IAP2 Canada website, and we encourage you to download it and to use it. It is meant to be there as a tool for all of you to use.
Great, and it looks like a good 3/4 of our audience are using that, so that's great.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Anne. So now to get into the case study itself, I am going to be reporting out on the 2010 10-year transportation and financial plan. this particular plan followed a year after we had done work on Transport 2040, which was TransLink's 30-year long-term vision. So we were now moving into the implementation stage of needing to go out and to secure funding for it. So what you're going to see is we wanted people involved because we wanted to ensure that the vision that we had for public transportation in the Lower Mainland area was meeting the needs of the public that were involved in this process. But we also needed to ensure that they were prepared to fund it. Now, I like big, hairy, audacious goals, and this was exactly one of them. And specifically, we were looking potentially to raise up to $450 million per year. So this was a very big amount of money that we were coming out to. Now, the challenge that we had was how do you bring all of these very complicated issues. For any of you that work in transportation, you'll know that there's many, many different issues, many considerations. So how do you bring all of these complicated issues together, and how do you distill them into really digestible chunks? Because you need to be very careful that you're not going to completely overwhelm your public that are going to be engaged in this. So how do you move it into digestible chunks and without losing the important content? And I think the other thing that I would like to just let you know is the other challenge that my internal team gave us was that we need you to do this in a fairly short time frame, and we're not going to have a lot of resources to be able to give you. So these were the sorts of challenges, and then as we were starting to prepare for all of this, one of the other challenges, as mentioned earlier, is that we needed to engage with approximately 2.1 million people that are spread out throughout the Lower Mainland area. And we were heading in to talk to them about money during a period of recession. We had just had a provincial election. And for any of you that remember the Olympics, we were going to be heading into the Olympics, and the news everywhere was that the Olympics were going to be over budget. So this is sort of the realm that we were going to be heading into. So I would imagine that all of you put together your objectives and strategy as you're developing your plan, and this is largely ours. You can see that we have adhered to TransLink's principles of public consultation, and largely, again, this just makes it easy. People know what those are. They know that we're going to follow through with those. But the really big important questions are the ones down at the bottom, was really how do we determine that general appetite for the programs and the investment? How do we inform people about the list of existing and potential funding sources, and how do we really facilitate an inclusive dialogue? Don't forget, this was a collaborative process, so it needed to be a deliberative dialogue.
Great, and I've just put another poll up here for folks for establishing consultation strategies. And so asking if they establish objectives, have an evaluation framework, and receive buy-in. And you've talked about the objectives and buy-in. I'm curious about the evaluation framework and wondering how much that changes throughout your project, what you actually use to evaluate versus how you said you'd start.
In fact, we were fairly fortunate. We really wanted to ensure that we are engaging people in as many ways as possible. So as we were determining the various ways that we were going to communicate out, we had established that we were going to do both online and offline. We established that we needed to make sure that as many people as possible knew about what we were going to do. So we were looking at those numbers of who was actually participating in the process. But one of the things that I think is really important, and we're getting into communications in just a second, but people need to know that they have the ability to participate. Whether or not they then subsequently participate is a really interesting discussion, because what we found out, and you're about to see a lot of communication on how we got the word out. And when we did a market research poll on were people aware of this process and were they aware that they could participate, we had over 85% of respondents say yes. Now, I can guarantee you that we did not have 1.5 million people participate in this process. But the fact that people were aware of what was going on and they knew that they had the ability to participate, I think is critically important. So yeah, we set the evaluation goals up front. We felt that we largely reached them, but I think one of the other things I would say on the evaluation side was that we actually had a third party come in and do the evaluation.
Oh, really? And so was that your plan from the beginning?
It was. We had actually established this as a pilot project. Because this was the first time, and I know for any of the people listening online, they're going to think it's odd because you know, I'm going to be talking about the importance of online consultation, but back in 2009, that was actually quite new. So, so we wanted.
Change.
It is. It's amazing how things change. So we really just wanted to see how this was going to work, both with online and offline, and the approach. So that was why we wanted an external evaluator.
That's neat, and it looks like from our poll that evaluation is the one that people don't often think about off the front, having only 60% of people doing that at the beginning. So looks like that was an element of your success.
Good. Well, I would suggest it's food for thought for those people that are online right now.
Great.
And communication is absolutely essential, and we work extremely closely with our communications team. We always have worked very closely with our communication team. They're absolutely brilliant in what they put together and how they do things. So my next couple of slides is going to be all showing you the various ways that we communicated the message out. So we did do the newspaper ads. One of the important things that I'll talk about right now is we established a tagline. And I don't know how many of you established taglines in your processes, but the tagline that we established was "Be part of the plan." And you'll notice that everything that is on, like all of the communications that we use, say "Be part of the plan." So they could Google "Be part of the plan" and immediately they'd get there to be able to participate in this process. These were the fact ads. We also had the newspaper ads. And could I just ask a quick favor again? Someone's not muted, and I'm having a really tough time repeating.
All right, so if we could just again ask everybody to make sure that they are muted. And it looks like everybody is, so we'll carry on.
Terrific. Thanks, Anne. As you know, with your core values, it's really important to get information out to people so that they can participate appropriately in the consultation process. So this newspaper ad really assisted people in. Okay, can anybody else? Anne, can you hear the people laughing and giggling?
No, I can't.
Okay, so it must just be coming through on mine. So my apologies. I'll keep going. My apologies for that. So anyway, again, really important to get them into the newspaper ads. Sorry, and then we had them on the buses. We had them on billboards so the people were aware. Anne, are you still there?
Yes, I realized it was me that was making the noise. So I've muted myself now.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, and then we had the billboards. Thank you for everyone for bearing with me. I'm having just a few issues in changing my slides, but we are going to get there. We had the newspaper ads. These specifically were for the consultation process. So as you can see, we had the overarching ad which talked about all of the various face-to-face consultations that we were going to be doing, and then we had the quite specific ads which talked about that would be placed in all of the local community newspapers, reminding people that we were coming to their areas soon. As we got closer to the actual consultation itself, we provided another newspaper insert, and it really went through some of the funding decisions that were going to be made. So again, we were really trying to inform people up front so that when they came and they participated, whether it was online or offline, that they were really aware of what the decision was that they were going to be making. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to hear the radio ads, but just let you know, we had great radio ads that went along with this as well. And we also had television.
Sorry, Amelia, I'm just going to stop you for a second. I've noticed that Allison has raised her hand, and I just wanted to take a break to see if, Allison, you wanted to ask Amelia a question. Maybe not? Okay, sorry. Thanks for that. Just getting used to the software.
Okay. Again, thanks to everyone for your patience as we move forward with this. It's really gratefully appreciated. So we did do television. Now, again, my apologies. You're not going to be able to hear, but I ran this through with Tanis, and they said that it was quite worthwhile in showing the ads. So these are little 15-second ads. So as you can see, the be part of the plan.ca is always really quite important. And I'll just show you the GHJ. So there you go. Those are some of the we placed. We also did a lot of online. So wherever possible, we got our information up onto online. And this was really the big start for us with social media. And so what you're seeing is the twittering, the blogging, and all of the other various things we did. We encouraged, we sat down with many different bloggers and encouraged them to put their own stuff up online. We gave them as much information as possible so that they could get the word out. And we also encouraged them to link directly to our website. This is TransLink's own buzzer blog. The buzzer blog receives slightly over 1,000 hits a day. So again, this was a really good way to be getting the word out, because what you find is not only do they come on online to chat to you, but they then tweet it out and do other things to others so they're aware of what's going on.
Amelia,
Don't forget traditional media when you're doing the...
Sorry, just going to stop you for a sec here and put another poll out that we have. But while you're doing that, we've had a question about your advertising budget or your communications budget.
Certainly. The advertising budget was actually quite large. It was, I'm going to say, just over $1 million to do the advertising. And I think this is really important. One of the things you all face as public consultation specialists or communicators is, you know, how much do you spend on something which is really large? And in our case, we were going out looking for approximately $450 million of additional revenue for TransLink on an annual basis. And the amount that we spent on advertising and the amount that we spent on the consultation, we spent just under $100,000 on the actual consultation itself, but I would suggest just over $1 million on the advertising. So it was large. This is a very large campaign.
And another question was how resource intensive the blog was.
We actually used our existing blog. So TransLink has an existing blog. She at that point in time, it was Jennifer Pablano, and she is our buzzer blog lady. So that was her job, to respond to the buzzer blog. So so we just added the consultation part in, because she does many other things within the buzzer blog as well.
That's great. Thanks.
Okay. So again, traditional earned media, please take advantage of it. I was amazed. As a consultation specialist, I rarely get interviewed, and I was interviewed a lot. And also I had the opportunity to do quite a few television segments. Now, you're going to see the reason why in a few minutes, and well, actually it's coming up right now. And that was that we chose to do our consultation in a slightly different way. We chose to do our consultation through a game, which you're going to see in just a second. So this is our website that you're looking at right now. I don't know how many of you use videos on your website, but we found that the video gets a lot of hits. So well worth it. Typically, someone's going to attend your website for probably a minute. So you want to be able to get them on and taking a good look, and if you can catch them within that minute, then they may subsequently go on to take a look at more information. And again, more on the website. And we did have forums on our website, so people had that opportunity to go back and forth and chat amongst themselves and provide ideas through the forum as well. So here's the game. It's called It's Your Move. And again, you might remember that one of the challenges that we had was we didn't have a lot of internal resources, and what I mean by that is staff to really participate in this process. So we needed to find something that was really going to allow the public to engage both online and offline in a very, in a way that they could just work amongst themselves. So the game that you're looking at right now was created to do that. The cards that are at the top, you're looking at the customer service card. There was a number of different vision questions that were asked from customer service to transit service to roads and bridges to biking to many different things. And this top card, top level, was where people identified what their vision was. So you could look at substantial cuts, you could look at maintaining current progress, or you could look at on track towards Transport 2040. And you'll notice that as they're designing their vision, they are actually adding up points. So we created those points, and it was very much based on the amount of money that would be required to actually put those things in place. So they would go across the top, they would create a vision. You're looking at a white sheet. The white sheet, people would do that individually, and then they would subsequently do it as a group. And you're watching people playing this around the table in the pictures on your right-hand side. So people have now gone forward. They've created their vision. They've decided what they want to do within the various areas, and now they have to pay for it. So they have created their own amount of money that they've got to raise, and underneath they have the opportunity to raise those funds through methods that are currently available to TransLink. TransLink is very fortunate. They have a number of different diverse ways to raise revenue. They could do it through increasing transit fares. They could do it through gas tax. They could do it through parking sales tax. They could do it through property tax, or they could also do it through what was called a transportation improvement fee. So what these people are doing in the pictures is they're creating the vision. They're now trying to ensure that they can finance it. Now, just so that you know, we had over 700 people actually do this in person, and only one table was actually able to balance their budget. So they were able to balance their vision and balance the amount of funding that they had now secured. Everybody else went on to look at future funding sources. So the yellow cards that you're looking at the far right of the game board were future funding. And for anyone that's in the transportation game, you would know that that's like road pricing, which is tolling and other things like that. In BC, we have something called the carbon tax, so there was a possibility to look at that as well. But again, this was really the public coming back to TransLink and saying, yep, we see the different funds that you currently have, but we think you need to look for some more, and we're giving you permission to go out and do that. So as I mentioned, we also had this online, and this is what the game looked like online. Just coming back for a second, I did mention that people could individually fill in these sheets, what they did, which they did do, but then the table had to come to a consensus. So the amount of dynamic, absolutely dynamic conversation that went on around those tables were terrific. You know, there were people saying, you know, there's no way that you're putting in more bike lanes. There's no way that you're going to be investing that kind of money. And then conversely, people saying, I don't want to invest in more bridges and more roads. That's not the way to go. But what they had to do was to work amongst themselves to make sure that that happened, because we didn't have TransLink at the table. This was just general public at the table. I had given them instructions as they started the game, but they completed the game amongst themselves. So it was a very interactive, very dynamic conversation that took place. And we actually only had 2 tables that said they could not come to consensus. And that was fair dues, because this was quite a tricky project to do that. And they did report out. So at the end of the evening, each of these tables did report out so that everyone in the room that was participating would have had an opportunity to hear what other people were thinking at the time. And our CEO was always there, and he was receiving this information, and a lot of our board members also attended this process. So as mentioned, it was also available online. Here it is online. So just to give you an idea, when people played this in person, it was probably about an hour and a half, because in person they would have also received a PowerPoint in advance of playing the game, which gave them an idea of who TransLink was and what we had done, etc., etc. When people played it online, it was under 10 minutes. So again, there was not as much, but again, as you know, when people are engaging with each other, it tends to take longer. But here it is online. The fascinating thing, and I was really impressed with our technical team, was that even though you were doing this individually, you could still see what other people were doing, how other people were responding. So that was almost an instantaneous gratification or an instantaneous reporting out on this. And again, they would have done the same thing with the funding. And they would have had the opportunity to do that, and then a reporting out at the end of what they had done. So as mentioned, we wanted to reach out to those people that wouldn't typically be involved, and our TransLink Listens gives us the opportunity to do it. It is our market research arm. So measuring. I'm sincerely hoping that all of you are measuring when you're doing the various things that you're doing. Having a consistent message across the board, whether it's offline or online or through your market research, is critically important. And one of the things that you would have noticed was that everyone was answering the same questions. So for us, when it came to measuring at the end, we were able to do it quite easily. Now you'll notice that there's slightly different responses, but as we went through it, it wasn't as dramatic as people thought it might be. So this different ways that we were able to measure what we were doing as we were going forward. So we're coming to the end. People always enjoy asking what were the numbers and in the work that we did. And really this is what you're looking at in front of you here. A lot of people participated in this process, and you know, having over 45,000 visits to our website was a very good indicator of that as well. But as mentioned earlier on in the process, when we did do our market research on whether or not people felt they could be involved, over 85% said yes, they could have been involved if they wanted to. So you can see the lessons learned up there on the screen, but what I'd like to do quickly is just to go through the core values, because one of the reasons that I was selected today, or TransLink was selected today to participate in this webinar, was that we were the winner of the Innovation IAP2 Core Value Award back in 2010. So I'm just going to quickly go through the core value awards, the core values, so that you can see how this particular initiative met those goals. So the first core value is those affected by the decision should be involved. And as you can have seen, we tried every way that we could think of to get people involved and aware of what was going on. The second core value is the public's contribution should be able to influence the decision. I am really proud and pleased to let you know that both our senior executive team at TransLink and also our board really took everything that they received from the public as advice, but they really initiated what the public had told them to do. So for your information, they did keep transit fares at just a small percentage of increase, which would have happened no matter what, but not the large increase we had originally asked for. They did increase the fuel sales tax to 15 cents a litre. They did increase the parking sales tax to the maximum, which was 21%. They didn't touch property tax. These were all the things that the public had indicated that they should be doing. So a really proud moment for anyone that is involved in consultation. The third core value is promote sustainable decisions. I honestly believe that we did that. We provided as much information as possible and then really listened to the individuals as they participated in the processes that we had identified. The fourth core value is to seek out and facilitate the involvement of those potentially affected. And again, you've seen the ways that we've done that. The fifth core value is to seek input from participants in designing how they participate. I would suggest to you that this is probably one of the core values that I have the most problem with and in actually initiating, and partially because you're sitting there, you're developing the strategy, you really want to make sure that everyone can be involved, and then you're just not sure. But one of the way they determine how they will participate is by providing as many different options for engagement as possible so that they can get out there and do what works for them. And we felt that we had provided those. We had forums, we were in shopping centers, we tried many different ways to get the words out. For number 6, that provides participants with the information that they need to participate in a meaningful way. And number 7 was to communicate to participants how their input affected the decision. Throughout the entire process, we kept people involved and aware of what was going on through the Buzzer blog. And the other thing that we did, and I don't know if all of you do it out there, but it was my responsibility as manager of public consultation and government programs to write a report to the board on what we had heard. And in writing my report to the board, all of the comments, everything was put online so that everybody had the opportunity to see what we heard, good, bad, and ugly, because that's what it's all about as public participation professional. So thank you very much. I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed today's webinar, and I'm now going to turn it over to Anne. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Amelia, and yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. So I'd ask folks that want to participate, we've got about 15-20 minutes left here, who have a question for Amelia to raise your hand or type in a question, and I can send those to Amelia. Seeing none right now, I'll just start with one of my own, which is engaging folks that would be described as disenfranchised, or how would you engage some of those people that might not typically be part of a process like this? Did you find different mechanisms that were useful for that?
Well, as I said, one of the things that we did do was market research, and again, because we were trying to be very measurable, it was important for us to be asking the same questions. So we did have a polling company actually do outreach to individuals that had not indicated that they participated in our processes to date. But the other things that we do is we actually go out to coffee shops, we go out to shopping centers. We try and think of every way that we can. We always make sure that information is available within the transit system itself. In Vancouver, we have almost 1 million people using our system on a daily basis, so it's quite significant. So we go to where the people are, and quite frankly, we didn't have the opportunity to play the game everywhere, but what we did have was the opportunity to ask people to go to be part of the plan. And again, I'll reiterate, having a really easy tagline just makes life easy. People remember it, and it really was everywhere from a communication perspective. If I was to do it again, I would love to have more time, and I think you'll probably hear that from most people on the call. I would have liked to have done more going into community centers, going into senior centers, and absolutely going more into schools. I think the game itself was ideal for students. We did have a lot of young people participate in our process that came out to ours, but I would have liked to have done more going out to them. So I don't know if that helps, Anne.
Thank you, absolutely. We've got one question that's come in here. Did you use a stakeholder management system? And if so, which one, and what were your experiences?
Well, we did this back in 2009 prior to stakeholder management systems. So unfortunately, we did not use one at that time. We did it the old-fashioned way and did everything, keyed in everything, and I read all of the comments and categorize them myself.
Wow, lots of work.
So
good thing we have technology now. Sounds good. So somebody's asked if this is an ongoing process or if it was just for that specific need at the time, and now that it's 2 years later, is TransLink still implementing the results of the consultation or using the results?
I think that's an excellent question. My understanding is that, TransLink did go out to secure more funding this year, 2011, and they were successful in garnering an additional 2 cents of fuel tax, and they actually used the results from the 2009 consultation to support the decision as they were moving forward. So, they did not go out to a large consultation process in 2011. Rather, they went back to confirm that people were still feeling the same way as they had in 2009, and it certainly seemed to be the case. And they had been successful, and it's now been approved, so they received an additional 2 cents in fuel tax. So certainly they're using those results. I mean, I think, it's really interesting. Decision makers aren't always quick to do more taxes or to raise fares or to do any of those kinds of things. But the one thing that we found as we did this particular process was if people knew where the money was going to, if you could have a direct correlation between the funding that you were asking for and the infrastructure or the programs that you were going to build or develop, then they were prepared to provide you with the funds that you needed. And the fact that there has been some pushback for TransLink, but not significant, I think is basically because TransLink has been very respectful of the public, and they have gone out and they have listened to them. But as I mentioned, I am now no longer with TransLink. So if you want more information on how TransLink is doing their business, I would suggest you get in contact with Bob Padden, who is at TransLink.
Great, thank you. So what are the most important elements to maintain in scaling this project down? So there's not a lot of consultations that happen at this scale and scope, and so how do you keep the integrity of this process on a smaller scale?
Yeah, I think it's really important to sit down and ask yourself how is, whatever you've been given, how is that going to affect people? Is it going to affect everyone within the region? Is it going to affect a specific group within the region? Like, who is it going to affect? And then subsequently design your process from that up. As I mentioned, we used the spectrum. We decided that it was going to be collaborate. We knew that this was going to affect everyone in the region, and so it was a very large-scale project. But TransLink does many other projects which are much smaller, and we design it for a corridor, for example, if they're building an LRT line. So they really invest a lot of money along the corridor, probably 500 meters on both sides. They let the rest of the region know what's going on, but they focus their energies in that area. So my question is, who's going to be impacted by it? How much decision will the public have in moving this forward? And then design your program around that.
Way to plug IAP2. So another question is, what was your experience using Facebook and Twitter, and how did they fit into your overall strategy or social media in general?
Oh, you guys are going to be really disappointed. We didn't use Facebook. We actually made a decision not to use Facebook. We did use an online forum. TransLink, I believe, is now using Facebook, but we didn't for this particular initiative. And again, when you're starting something new, sometimes it's all right just to focus on a few areas and not overwhelm yourself. And so we didn't use Facebook. We did, however, use Twitter. And again, one of the things you probably know with Twitter is you can't really have a long conversation on Twitter, but you can send people to the event. So we sent people to be part of the plan and encourage people to participate. But Ken Hardy, who is the Director of Communications at TransLink, who's just a terrific guy. Anyway, Ken came to all of our meetings, and he'd Twitter out from the meetings. So he'd be twittering, oh, you never guess what we just heard, or, we've just heard that fuel tax is the way to go, but he'd send those short little messages out. And what was really interesting from my perspective is the media watches all of those Twitters. And Ken has a very heavy following. And so all of a sudden we'd have television cameras show up because they just heard that, something's been a little bit controversial at one of the meetings, and so they want to come and see what's being done. So, sorry, we didn't use Facebook, but yes, we did use Twitter.
And was it a conscious decision to not use Facebook?
Yes, it was a conscious decision. As I said, we were using the Buzzer blog, we were using the online forum, and we just felt at that point in time that we couldn't support Facebook as well.
Great. So who was in charge of designing or building the online components, and was that in-house or part of your external consultants?
So we had a really incredible lady called Kirsten Kopang-Telford, who was working with myself along with Patty Lacroix, and we had sort of developed the game together. A lot of people asked, did we develop the game outside, and the answer is no. We actually developed it in-house. Based on lots and lots of conversations, and so the card game itself, like the face-to-face card game, was created along with the help of a very good graphic artist who was outside of TransLink, and then Kirsten took that and mimicked it online.
Great, and I guess following up with that, how did you come up with the game concept, and then was it a hard sell at TransLink, or how did it go over?
So I'm wondering if someone from TransLink's on board who's asking that question. Anyway, we came up with the concept largely, as mentioned. We needed to talk about a really, really difficult topic in a way that was easy for people. And I know this sounds bizarre, but I happened to have been playing games with my neighbor's kids a couple of weeks before, and it just seemed like it was a good way to build, and that's what we were doing. We were building from the vision to how do you pay for it, and so quite often when you're playing games, that's what you do. So we were, you know, we just came up with the idea. We took it out to our internal teams, and they initially were not supportive, and it took quite a while to encourage people that it's good, it's something that we need to try. We are having a difficult conversation, trust us. And luckily I went to our CEO at the time, and he supported it. And once we had our CEO on board, we were then, and once we had our board members on board, we were then able to develop it and work very closely with our internal team to make it work. But I can tell you the other thing, just so that you know, is we did focus group this. So we did take it out to focus groups and make sure that it was going to fly, it was something that the public responded to. But that first time that we took it out at the Livability Forum, and we had over 200 people there, and we saw it in action, it was spectacular. It was just one of these wonderful jump up and down, do a little dance kind of moments.
That's exciting. That's great. Question, did you allow the media to film or broadcast at the sessions that you were hosting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we always give the media the opportunity to come in and film, and we always allow them to talk to whoever they want to talk to. It's not up to us to prevent them from doing that. This wasn't a closed in-camera session. This was a public consultation.
Great. And the last question that we've got in here is how many inside staff were working on this project, and then how many external consultants?
Let's start with the external first. So Kirsten and Patty were our external consultants who worked on the sort of the online component of what we were doing. We worked with Kirk & Co. on actually, you know, putting the various meetings together and, you know, getting all of the logistics sorted out for the meetings. Internally, we worked with our planning group and obviously our communications group. Our communications group were involved in all of the getting it up and running, but they didn't participate in the actual events. At the actual events themselves, I had my CEO presenting. Normally a couple of VPs would show up. Normally a couple of board members would show up, but they weren't working the event. They were just there to listen. So actually working the event, we would probably have had 2 people welcoming people to come in at the reception area and signing up, because the other thing was we always encourage people to leave their email address so that we can continue to keep them informed of the process. There was myself who was facilitating the event, and maybe one other public consultation person. So actually working the event was the CEO, myself, and 2 to 3 public consultation, and maybe 1 planner.
That's great. Are there any other questions that folks haven't asked yet? This will be your last calls. We're coming to the end of our presentation here. Okay, don't see any, so thank you so much, Amelia, for taking the time and putting this together and for braving the technology with the first, oh, I see one more question. Oh, impressive work, very nice.
Oh.
Well done. And I've got one hand raised, so Amanda, did you have something to say? Nope, hand not raised. Okay, great. So we'll just close this off here, and I'll let folks know that this webinar and all of its technical difficulties will be posted online, a recording of it, to our website for other folks to use. And we will be looking for ideas or presenters for future webinars that offer value and engagement for our members. A call will be posted on our website and Facebook later this week, so please do think about that. About an hour from now, you'll be getting in your inboxes a survey. Please do give us your input, fill it out. It's just a quick SurveyMonkey tool. We really do appreciate this. This is the first, like I said, professional web development webinar that we're doing, so we appreciate your feedback and your input. I know all of you understand how input can be valued, so we ask you to please give that for us. And then the next webinar, just a reminder that will be free for members and a small fee for non-members. So if you were holding off on renewing your membership or putting that off for a while, you can do that at IAP2Canada.ca/membership. If you have any other questions about this webinar or about IAP2, you can email us at info@IAP2Canada.ca. Yes, that's on the website. And again, a great big thank you to Amelia for presenting today and to all of you for braving the technology and joining us. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Anne?
Yes.
Tanis?
Folks are ducking out
Are you guys still there?
But I think Anne and Tanis are. We can stay on the line a bit afterwards. We've just got 12 people still online.
So people stayed online for quite a while.